Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, welcome back. I just want to remind you that you can get all my homestead science books on my website for a new way of teaching agriculture to today's youth and aspiring homesteaders by focusing on small-scale farming and self-sufficiency. If you're a school or co-op and need invoicing, please feel free to reach out to me directly. So hello, guys. I am going to just give you a warning that I am super, super sick with like the nastiest head cold I've probably like ever had. I don't even know. It's ridiculous. I think it's incredibly rude that I got a head cold when I have so much stuff to do and so many wonderful things that I'm trying to put together for you guys. But it is what it is, so I'm rolling with it. I had a really long-winded podcast planned for you guys today that was going to include a lot of stuff about raising self-sufficient kids, and I just don't have it in me. So I decided to pop in, just kind of give you an update about what's going on in our lives, tell you a little bit about something cool I have going on, and then um, pull one of my awesome interviews out of my cache, and you'll get to enjoy that so much more than listening to me hack for an hour. So, um, first off, I always like to give a little update on the homestead. We have been incubating chickens like crazy around here. Now, we have always done a ton of chick incubation, or sorry, quail incubation. We've done chicks a bunch of times, but we have had on and off quality hatch rates on those. And we decided to just really lock it in. I'm actually re-releasing my poultry incubation course, and I was like, if I'm going to be, which by the way, I am re-releasing my poultry incubation course. It is all with video now. If you it was supposed to be out today. My husband ended up needing help at work, and I had to kind of just cut bait with what I was doing, and go help him. Just a homestead business owner style life. But if you head over to I think it's thehomesteadeducation.com/ poultry dash incubation, you can join the wait list for that. I will link that in the show notes, just in case what I just quoted you was wrong. Um, but I was like, if I'm going to be relaunching this, I want to make sure that I am I'm writing it down so I don't forget. So for the people who are watching this on YouTube going, what is she doing? I am writing it down. Um, I wanted to make sure that I was giving all the best information because I don't like not putting the best foot forward in every opportunity that I can. So, my husband and I have been working on mastering our incubation. Which my husband, he really like when we first started incubating a few years ago, I was like, he's not even going to be interested in this. And I don't remember exactly what was going on. It was like kind of during like when COVID hit, and I remember I was either pregnant or breastfeeding at the time, but we wanted to give it a try. And so he kind of jumped in, and I was just giving him some advice from like, like the background. And now at this point in life, like incubating's kind of his deal. Like he really digs it. Him and my daughter, like I say my daughter, it's our daughter, but for those of you who have followed us long enough know that we're a blended family, so sometimes I slip and say my daughter. But he's been raising her for most of her life, so sometimes I slip. But she she's really into the incubation as well. Of course, all of our kids are interested in it, but she takes a lot of ownership in it. So the two of them have been incubating like crazy, and then, I've been doing the videos kind of because I'm the one who can take all of the information that we research and learn and present it in a way that is very obtainable and can a lot of people glean information from. So that's been a lot of fun. And with that, though, we have been incubating probably more chicks than we need. So we've been excited because we do get to increase our flock with us opening our store this year. We're going to be able to have a lot more eggs. We'll probably sell some pullets at the end of the year, at the end of like, I say the end of the year, but like as we're kind of going into winter, when we kind of see where what we really need for the year, we'll probably sell some pullets, and people always like that because they can bulk up their winter flock um, with some birds that are already laying. We'll also be selling some chicks soon, so that'll be fun. We're going to get to a point here in a little bit where it just makes sense to not even like raise those chicks out. We'll just be selling them as day olds. But it's also going to be a way that we can save up some money for a new incubator for ourselves because we've really been wanting a cabinet incubator for a few years now. And so that's going to be good for us because with the amount of meat birds that we raise, just for our family size and with what we want to start selling on our farm, that just makes more sense for us. And there's kind of one I've been eyeballing. I talk to them at every conference I go to, and eventually one day it will be mine. So um, that's kind of our big, exciting homestead projects that we're working on, besides the massive amounts of plants I have growing in our mudroom, which I like super exciting news for me. I have finally mastered, um, and I can't even think of the word now because I'm sick and on tons amount of cold medicine, soil blocking. I have been doing the mini 20s forever and finally got those locked in, but I haven't been able to really lock in doing the soil blocks that are the four group of four, and they're a little bit larger. And I mean, I've just messed with them and messed with them and messed with them, and I finally got them to work for me the other day, and I'm so excited. So I will be doing a quick YouTube video on those. I mean, I know that I'm not reinventing the wheel on that, but I feel like, there's a lot of people who they master it and they're really good at it, and by the time they do a YouTube video, it's just old hat. And then someone like me goes and watches the video and they're like, I have no clue what this person's doing because they're just going so fast. So I'm going to go ahead and throw one together for everybody, and I'll put that out next Friday. Or I guess this Friday. Today is this will be Tuesday that this comes out. So go ahead and watch for that. As long as I'm feeling good enough. I'm feeling pretty cruddy, but I'm going to try to, put the effort forward and get that out. Uh the next thing that I have going on, which I'm really excited about, is I am starting a community of homesteading parents. And I don't know if maybe I should have led into that a little bit differently, but like I said, I am just so sick. I just like my notes right here say talk about the community. Um, I am launching that with a homesteading kids challenge on Instagram next week, where every day I'm going to be popping in live talking about what it's like raising homestead kids, and then giving everybody a little homework assignment on, posting and building their own communities. And then I'm going to be launching a community as well where we can talk about the joys, the challenges, the struggles of what it's like actually raising kids on a homestead. Which, my husband and I, when we first started homesteading, and we pulled our kids out of school and we were homeschooling them, and oh my gosh, it just felt like everything was so liberating. We didn't have to answer to the government, we didn't have to answer to the grocery store, we didn't have to answer to society. We were able to do whatever we wanted. We were raising our kids, eating the way we wanted to. I mean, it was just the most liberating thing that we've ever experienced, and we still feel that way. However, when it comes to those moments where we just want to be able to share joys and excitements, and we just don't have that circle that we used to have when we kind of were in more mainstream society. And for a while there, we thought, well, I guess if we are swimming upstream, we're doing it by ourselves. But with all of our travels and of course the time that we've spent on social media, we've found that we aren't the only ones doing this. I mean, there is massive movements. I mean, look at 1,000 hours outside and wild and free. And I mean, we're part of those movements ourselves. I mean, people are running back to their roots. Like it's this like new traditional modern way of parenting. But I feel like especially those of us that are more in that modern homestead where we're much more rural, we have to spend more time on our farms. Um, a lot of us are doing church at home. We're homeschooling. We're just not involved in I mean, we're involved in our communities, but we aren't out there as much. We don't have circles to lean on. And I mean, I even find like, you know, it used to be, like I can't get kids to do, I can't get my kids to clean their room. I'm going to call my mom and ask. But, when your mom didn't grow up on a farm, like how do I get my kids to go feed the chickens? Like it's just not the same type of advice that you would normally be able to get. Or you can't call your best friend and be like, how do I get my kids to, or like, or you call your best friend, oh my gosh, my kids are so excited. They drank raw milk straight from the cow for the first time. Your best friend just doesn't get that anymore. When it used to be like, oh, I'm so excited. My kid sang the ABCs for the first time. It's just a different set of um joys that we come across. And then I've also found that like the choices of books that we read, the choices of activities that we do are just different than what like our mom groups and that type of thing. And man, I tell you what, if you go to a Facebook group, you are going to get eaten alive. Like whether it's a positive, a negative, a just a like a really honest question. I mean, I've had people come to me and ask, how do I get my kids to be comfortable with butchering? But then I've also seen that same question out on Facebook groups, even in homesteading groups. And I've seen these poor moms just get eaten alive. And it's really sad. And so I've decided that I'm creating a community for us. And like I said, I'm kicking it off with a challenge. There's going to be a community option to follow where we can create a community that we want and need to be able to celebrate our homesteading kids. So, on that note, let's move on to well, sorry. We can go ahead. You can find out more about that at thehomesteadeducation.com/, um, homesteading kids challenge. Again, I will link that in the show notes. The challenge is only going to be for a week, but then I will link how you can get to the community there, both there and in the show notes when that's available. Um, so let's go ahead and move on to our guest for the week, Durenda Wilson. She has come out with an amazing book on raising boys, and I think that just goes exactly with what we're talking about right now, and I can't wait for you to hear everything that she has to say on the topic.
Hi, everyone. Today I have my friend Durenda Wilson on, and this is our second time doing this together as I was on her podcast last summer, and we have a great story to share with that one. But welcome, Durenda,
Thank you. It's great to be here. Good to see you again. We had so much fun last time.
right? So, Durenda has her own podcast, and of course, I'm always so bad about writing these things down. I already forgot the name of it.
Oh, well, it's really, really
Oh, yeah.
complicated. The Durenda Wilson podcast.
Yes, you have something else that there's like a different name for it, and that's what it
Right,
was.
right.
Yeah. Um, but you are an author of several books and a public speaker and just such a wonderful mentor to so many homeschool moms. And I am so blessed to be able to have you on the Homestead Education Podcast.
Well, I'm honored to be here. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Wonderful. So let's start off by telling everybody our fun little story.
Right?
So I actually met Dorinda about, I guess it was last summer at a homeschool conference in California, and we realized we had, some things in common, like that she used to live nearby, and she has a mutual friend that lives in the same area as me and stuff. So she ended up inviting me on her podcast. And I was on the road after Homesteaders of America, and I brought my little I have this little round podcast mic that I bring with me when I travel. So I was so excited. I had this all planned. I'm gonna be on Dorinda's podcast. I'm just gonna stop at like a gas station or something, let the kids like get out and run. And I realized that we were gonna be going over the Blue Ridge Mountains at the exact same time that we had our podcast scheduled.
Right.
So I email her and I say, hey, can we reschedule? Is this going to work for you? And she's like, oh, I don't know. Like, my timing for when I normally record. And I told her that, well, we're getting ready to go over the Blue Ridge Mountains. And she responds back with, wait, where are you at? And I tell her, and turns out we were what, and like an hour and 40 minutes from your
Yep.
house or
Yep.
something like that.
I mean, what are the
So,
chances?
right. Like, I mean, we were just at a random gas station somewhere. There was no
Right.
rhyme or reason for where we were at that moment. And she's like, well, why don't you just come to the house and do the podcast?
Yeah, it was great. And then your kids could get out and run around and have fun, and it was awesome. So that's what we did. It was
It,
great.
it ended up being such a fun afternoon, and the kids still talk about it.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Yeah. In fact, it was actually okay. So my son, he's on the spectrum, so sometimes he has his moments. And
Right.
so today he goes, well, who's your podcast with today, Mom? And I said, it's with Durenda Wilson. And he's like, I don't know who that is. And I was like, that's okay. I mean, it's hard to remember everybody's names.
Right.
So, it was the lady that we went to her house in North Carolina. I don't know who you're talking about. And I'm like, well, like, it was right. You played with her son in the yard. Like, I have pictures of you guys arm wrestling.
Right.
I don't know who you're talking about. And I was like, it was right before we went over the Blue Ridge Mountains. And he's like, oh yeah, I totally remember. We went to Black Mountain right after that. Like as soon as I like put it on the map for him,
Wow.
then he knew
Wow.
exactly who I could tell me about the whole day. I was like, I love you
That's
and you annoy
hilarious.
me.
Right? I know. Oh my gosh. You just had to give him the right piece of information.
Right. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about some of the things that you have done? Because I really want to get to kind of why we have you on the podcast today.
Sure. Well, the first thing I did a long, long time ago was marry my husband 34
Hmm,
years ago. I married Daryl and we have 8 kids. We had 8 kids in 13 years. 5 of them are boys. And now we have 11 grandkids. 7 are boys. And we like raised them homesteading,
I love it.
and when it
Of
wasn't
course,
a thing, it wasn't popular, it wasn't a trend. And
Mhm.
and I actually just recently did an episode with my daughter on the realities of homesteading. Just telling some funny stories and things you don't expect when you decide to homestead. But
Oh,
anyhow,
yeah.
yeah, but it's a great way to raise kids. And we're so glad we did it. And we kind of stepped away from it for a while and now we're back at it again. So but in the meantime, kids, consistently flew the nest and I started writing and then I started podcasting. And so I've got 4 books and just did my fourth one recently, Raising Boys to Men, a simple, mercifully short book on raising and homeschooling boys. And so that's been a lot of fun to watch that. Just, I mean, the amazing response. It's been incredible. So
I have
thousands of books
been
sold and in
I have
just a
been
few weeks.
watching that like it just happen online and it has
Yeah.
been amazing.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And so yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And so I never set out to be a podcaster or a writer or any of those things. It just happened a little bit at a time, and here I am,
Well,
and I'm
you
I'm
know,
thankful.
podcasting wasn't a thing.
No, it wasn't.
And
No,
I
but even
was
public speaking, it was like,
well,
oh heck no, I'm never doing that.
right.
Mm-mm.
I always wanted to write a book, but I never knew like I never thought that this would be the context in which I was writing it
Right,
on,
right.
like textbook style or on parenting and that type of
Yeah,
thing. Like
yeah.
I thought I was going to end up writing romance novels or something.
You could talk about the romance between your bull and your heifer.
Right? Yeah, I
Oh
mean, I
goodness.
have like 3 half-written books from when I was in college and all, thought that
Right,
that's what I was
right.
going to do one
It
day.
was good practice, right? Maybe
It
someday you'll finish
was.
them.
Maybe. And there's still good stories.
Right.
I have a lot of good short stories that I've written, but yeah, I was talking to a 21-year-old girl the other day who's in a big transition place in life right now, and
Mm,
I she's like, I just don't know what I want to do. I'm considering majoring in this and majoring in that, and I'm taking my general ed classes, and I said, do you think that I knew that I was going to do what I do when I grew up?
right. I know. Yeah, who knew? I mean, I realized this even when our oldest son was young. He was young. I mean, maybe he was still in elementary school. And it dawned on me that there was no way for me to know what it is that he would do, mainly because I
Mhm.
wouldn't know what he would choose. And in that moment, I would have never guessed he would be a software engineer for Amazon. None of that really that job wasn't a thing.
No.
And Amazon wasn't a thing then. And here we are. And that, it's going to be the same for this group of parents who are now raising kids. You don't
Yeah.
know. You don't know what they're going to do for a living. And so the best thing to do is just sort of design their when I say design their education, let them follow their interests. That's what I
Mhm.
really mean. I don't
Oh,
mean you're
yeah.
going to come up with this curriculum that's going to be specially designed. I don't mean that at all. I mean, like, teach them to read, teach them
Yeah.
to write, teach them to do basic math, and then like explore stuff together,
Yeah.
experience things together. And and then when you've got those basics down, my son told me once, he said, Mom, it was your job to give us the basic skills. It was our job to do something with those. So often we
Yeah.
take on all the responsibility as the parent, that we have to make sure they get to, their destination, even though we don't know what that is. But
Yeah.
there's a point at which they have to take over. And so what we want to do is just equip them to be able to take over, to be
Oh,
able
yeah.
to make those decisions, to be able to say, yes, I know this would be a good fit for me, and no, that wouldn't. But that means a lot of experimenting. And I felt like, as a homeschooling mom, every year was an experiment. That's what I told everybody. Like, every year is an experiment. Oh, yeah, I've been doing this 20 years. It's still an experiment because it's different season, different kid in a different season, developmental
No.
phase. I mean, it's constantly evolving and changing, and you have to be able and willing to do that as a homeschooling parent. That's going to give your kids the best start in life, is when they see you pivoting with
Yeah.
things and problem solving, and like what you're going to be talking about, being resilient, being able to come
Yeah.
back from things and just not see things as, not look at obstacles and think, oh, well, I guess I can't do that, but look at that and say, how can I get over that or around that to get to
Yeah.
where I want to go, so they see obstacles
Exactly.
as like challenge accepted.
Hmm. I mean, I talk to my kids all the time about it, and I tell them, like, I make mistakes as a mom. Like, you guys did
Hmm.
not come with a manual. So if
Right.
you'll work with me, I'll work with you.
Exactly. This is a team effort here.
Yeah. Like, we're learning together, but
Mhm.
bottom line is, like, I have a little bit more experience with you, so
Right.
I'm the one who's guiding this.
Right. Right. I am ultimately in charge. I'm also ultimately responsible, which is
Mhm.
scary.
Yeah.
So they don't have to carry that scariness,
Yeah.
but at
There
the
was this
same
guy up
time,
above
yeah.
who gave me that,
Right.
the ultimate in charge, gave
Exactly.
me the ability to be in charge of you.
Right.
So you are going
Right.
to follow that, and I am given guidance to
Right.
raise
Right.
you.
And I'm
But
also going to give you choices sometimes, and then
mhm,
sometimes I'm not.
yeah. Yeah, that free will that I was given, I will give you free will too, but we're gonna learn
Right.
together. So
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's so key, just that humble attitude of being teachable, while still being in charge. I think
mhm,
that is the balance right there, because a lot of people were like, well, I really don't know what I'm doing. So then they go through parenting just unsure of themselves all the time, constantly second guessing, constantly worrying that they're doing the wrong thing. It's like, okay, no, you can't do that. The kids need to know that you're in charge, that
mhm.
you carry the responsibility, and you're taking that on, and you're going to move forward, and sometimes you're going to make mistakes and you're going to have to apologize, and that's okay.
Sometimes
And
it's stinky having to apologize too.
oh, it is, but I always told my kids, look, it's not a failure if you learn something from it, right?
Yeah.
So we
I've
apologize, we
even
look at it
Some
and
of
we
my
go,
apologies have been pretty sad too.
yeah.
I'm sorry I yelled. You
Right.
made me very mad. Yeah, I
Right,
shouldn't
that's
have yelled.
called yeah, that can be natural consequences, but I shouldn't have done
Yeah.
that.
Mhm. You're
um,
still gonna do the consequence because I'm mom.
right. Right, and you got to
And
feel
I'm
that.
gonna leave the room before I yell more or cry or do whatever it is that,
Right.
yeah.
Exactly. We're going to hit the pause button here.
Yeah. So I want to go ahead and give you an opportunity to talk about your book, because
Mhm.
usually the way I do my podcast is, we just chat, 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 and then I give you an opportunity to kind of promote your book at the end. But I feel like your latest book has been so influential that I would like to kind of start with it,
Mhm.
and then let's just chat about what it means and some of the things that's kind of come with that.
Well,
Because
yeah.
I mean, while I was reading it, I was just like, I want to talk to her about this. I want to talk to her about this. So,
Well, what do you want to talk about? Because there's a lot to
well, why
talk
don't
about.
There is. Well, why don't you tell everybody about the book and then
Okay.
let's chat about it.
Okay. Well, the book is called, like I said before, Raising Boys to Men, a simple, mercifully short book on raising and homeschooling boys. And I had a passion and a desire to write this book specifically to moms because we struggle to understand our boys. And we do so because we are wired very differently.
We are.
And unfortunately, we live in a culture that doesn't really acknowledge that.
Mm.
So many things around us, so many systems and ways of doing things are feminized. They're set up for girls, not for boys. And there are people who have been shouting this from the mountaintops for decades, and yet nothing changes. And
It's really
so,
like, I'm sorry to like
yeah, go
interrupt for a
ahead.
second.
No.
And you've kind of you brought it up a couple times in your book too. It was the systems are set up for women, but then like medical stuff is only focused on men.
Hmm.
But then anything that men try to do is considered toxic. And it's
Right.
just this like horrible disaster that
It
disaster
is.
is the
It's a
only way of
disaster.
describing that.
Right. And right.
That
And so what ends up happening is moms are like, look, I have this boy, this son. I
mm,
love him. I see things in him that I don't know what to think about because we have been so informed and influenced by the culture that we're sort of sitting back going, okay, is this okay? Is this not okay? So constantly second guessing ourselves because we know there are differences between boys and girls, but we're struggling to reconcile what we know to be true about our boys, some of those good things that we've maybe heard in passing from somebody who's, actually speaking the truth. And then what the culture and actually a lot of the church is telling us about how boys should behave and how they should act. And I think I make it super clear in my book that they do need boundaries. They need very clear boundaries. They need
yeah,
us to keep those consistent. So I'm not against boundaries, but I am against keeping a lid on this God given energy that these boys have and this God given aggression that they have. And I
mm,
do believe that it's our responsibility as moms and as parents to direct that wonderful energy towards something
yeah.
productive. I think that's our main job. When a while back I had Mark Hancock from Trail Life USA
Oh, he's
on.
awesome.
He's awesome, and
Yeah,
he said something that just really stuck with me. He said typically boys walk around with three questions on their minds all the time: who's in charge, who's on my team, and what are we doing, or what is our mission? So
yeah.
boys have this really kind of continual conquering mode that they're in. And so if we don't give them something good to conquer, and a mission to have, they're going to get into trouble. It's just going to happen. And so if we
Yeah.
understand that that's actually a feature in our boys and not a bug, that they have this energy and this aggression, it's just our job to give them discernment in how to use that, when to use it, read the room, know when it's okay to do something and when it's not. But we're also not keeping a lid on that energy all
Yeah.
the time. Like where they look around, they go, yeah, this isn't the place or time to talk about fart jokes, but they're going to probably try it a few times first. And
Yeah.
so that's always my warning to moms, like you're going to be embarrassed by your boys. It's
Mm,
going to happen. And so if you just know that and you change your expectations and you realize that, okay, this is the nature of boys, they're going to push the parameters, they're going to push physical limitations, they're going to do things that look stupid, but the reality is they're actually learning and firing on all cylinders while they're doing these kinds of things. And so if we can obviously just keep them alive until they're adults, we will have done a big part of our job. But along with that, teaching them discernment and things like that. But I think all of what I'm saying is very countercultural.
it
And
is. Yeah.
what we're
And
seeing
I
in
love
the
it. Like I'm like
culture,
celebrating it.
yeah, it's just it's sad. The state of boys today, the average boy. I
Mhm.
know so many wonderful boys and young men that I don't think about it as much, but the average boy or young man is so unhappy and so confused and depressed, and they're just so out of touch with who
Yeah.
God made them to be, which is to be leaders, providers, protectors,
Mhm.
conquerors, builders. These are this is what God put in them, and they do it all in various ways. You know, some do it through the arts, others do it through physical building and more like, you know, trade type stuff. Others do it through tech, but they're all built to do that within the scope of whatever it is they're going to be doing. And so I think that's something we just need to be aware of as moms.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're just wired to do that. And when
Yeah,
you like you said, you have to just direct it a certain way because that like that aggression, I would love for them to aggressively go after a business deal.
exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
just because aggression isn't always bad. When you
No,
when you
that's the part I don't understand
yeah.
is when did we decide all aggression was bad?
Mhm.
But it's like all aggression from men or boys, not from women. Like it's okay from women, but it's not okay from boys and men. And I'm like, that is really backwards.
Yeah. And and
And
I'm
yeah,
even
go ahead.
saying this like I was in a domestic violence situation. I had a very
Mm,
negatively aggressive husband for a
mhm,
while.
mhm,
And that's because he wasn't taught to express his aggression in a healthy way.
mhm, mhm.
And so, I mean, but I take that situation and go, I'm going to teach my sons to use that aggression in healthy ways to say, I'm upset, even in other, like when I'm upset about something, I'm going to fix that. I'm going to
Right.
use that energy and that anger and that frustration to fix the situation for myself or for someone else.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And that's what I feel like where when it comes to aggression in the culture, we don't appreciate it because we aren't running for our lives anymore. You know, like
No.
for the last thousands and thousands of years, we as women and children needed men to be
Mhm.
willing to protect and do all those things. And now we have so many conveniences, so many things that are just, you know, right there for us. We're pretty safe overall. And
Yeah.
so we've
Which
lost
I
the
actually believe is causing a mental health issue
I agree.
overall.
I agree, but you know, there's lots of different ways to direct that aggression, and I feel like
Mhm.
one of the things we're really in need of is for all of us to be raising sons who become men who are willing to fight against the moral and political overreach that
Yeah.
is, you know, hell bent on destroying the family. And we
Mhm.
need men who are kind and understand how to help the helpless, but they're not afraid to wage war when necessary because they love what and who they're fighting for. And I think that's the fight may look different in our culture, but it's
Mhm.
still a worthy fight and one we need these men to engage in. And so my honest hope is that the long term, I have a short term goal for this book and a long term, the short term goal is that moms and parents would be reminded of how their boys are wired and be able to really nurture that and grow these men into strong men who
Mhm.
understand what's happening around them and how to engage well in what's going on.
We
Um,
kind of have an opportunity right now to like
we
take that
do.
back. Yeah.
That's what I firmly believe that I'm so hopeful because I believe that in 10 to 15 years, if we do this, if
Mhm.
each family, I feel like it's one family at a time,
It is. Yeah.
you know, we're gonna change the culture. And so what's gonna happen is in 10 to 15 years, these little guys who are just, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 right now
Uh-huh.
are gonna head out into the world and they are going to very quickly replace the well, for lack of a better term, knuckleheads who are currently running the country.
Right.
I honestly think they will do it because they will have the discernment, the wisdom. They're going to be, like the Bible talks about, wise as serpents, gentle as doves. They're going to be so smart and discerning and capable and resilient that there's no amount of I think about what's happening right now and so many of those who are in charge as just they're foolish. They're absolutely foolish. You cannot that can't somebody said stupidity is not sustainable. Like it's not, it can't last. It might
Yeah.
last for
No.
a while and it might get kind of ugly for a while, but it can't be sustained. And so what we want is for these men, these boys who are going to soon be men, to come in at right at that point when it's so clear this is not sustainable anymore and things are starting to crumble, and they come in and they create just a complete shift in the culture. That's my hope.
That would be amazing. Yeah. Sorry. Sometimes I have to write things down.
Me too. Hmm.
So yeah, while I was reading the book, which, it's an amazing book. I had to laugh because your title, mercifully short,
Right, mercifully
is
short.
what
Yes,
you need when you are raising boys.
absolutely. I needed
Because
it. I'm the worst book finisher on the planet, and I'm an author.
yeah,
Explain
I'm
that to
usually
me.
I'm usually reading 3 or 4 books at a time because I have to have like a digital one, an audio one in my purse because I only get to
Right.
read about a paragraph at a time.
Right. And it has to be the right moment. So you have to have all these different versions of it so you can like take advantage of that moment.
Yeah. And I saw a meme the other day, like this mom sitting there with a book and like absolute chaos is happening all around her. And somebody's like, "What are you reading?" And the title of the book was the same paragraph over and over again.
So true.
That
So
was,
true.
I was reading the book trying to go to bed the other night, and I have my 4 and 6-year-old literally like jumping on the bed with me. And I'm like, can you stop? Can you stop? And they're like, "Mom, what are you reading? Can you read it to me?" What's I'm like,
Right?
no, you don't want to hear
That's
this.
hilarious. Actually, I can't even see the words because the bed is moving.
Or I was trying to finish up the last little bit earlier, and my 4-year-old really needed a nap. And so I thought, well, that's perfect. I'll go
Right.
in the bedroom and try to get him down for a nap and he'll be quiet. And then my other children won't be talking to me.
Right.
And they took that as like they thought that meant follow me into the bedroom and continue talking to me.
Right.
And I was literally like, shut up and get out. But I mean, that was my 15-year-old, so I could be a little
Right.
bit
Right.
more like
Right.
go. And
That's
I'm
funny.
laughing while because I'm holding this book. This is just the most ironic
Yep.
moment.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and
But
I think one of the things that is also super concerning to me when it comes to boys is just how often they're misdiagnosed and misunderstood. I
yes.
mean, we are literally drugging
Hmm.
our boys up to get them
Oh
to
yeah.
do something they were never made to do, like sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day.
Oh, I agree.
Um,
My
yeah,
6-year-old, like he doesn't like reading. And that's okay because he's 6.
yeah, right. He doesn't have to like it.
I started him reading, when he started preschool, he wasn't
Hmm.
interested. He got a bug identification guide. He could not read his bug identification guide. And he was very
Right,
frustrated with me that he could not read his bug
right.
identification guide. So he informed me it was time to start reading.
And this is the nature of things. If we just are patient and wait long enough. Now, there are people I know. I personally have experienced where it took longer than 6 years
Mhm.
old, 7,
Yeah.
8, 9, but the
And
one who read the latest is my most voracious reader as an adult.
so funny.
Yeah,
And this guy, he wants to do his sight words and stuff now, but he
hmm,
cannot do it. Like we can't sit and do it like
right.
at a table.
Oh, right,
So
right, right,
we've actually worked it out. Like I sit in my recliner chair and I sit cross-legged in it and I have the seat up so that he can like sit in a rocking chair and like sit at the end and rock the chair while he's doing his sight words.
yep,
And then the
yep.
ones he can't remember, he has to like get up and run around the room and come back and say them. And
I
that's
love
how
it.
he locks them in.
I love it, and
But
that is so not abnormal for
mhm,
a boy, and yet how often does the average person or even a lot of the homeschool moms are just like, I don't understand. He doesn't know how to read yet. He's 6 years old. He doesn't even seem to be interested. All he wants to do is play. I'm like, let him play.
then let him play. Yeah.
Let him do it.
And
And,
or when
there's
you do it,
always a time to read to them. Like they eventually, at the end of the day, it's wind down time. I mean, that can be a great time to just, we're going to read a book together,
mhm.
and eventually, like you said, when they see the need, they personally have the need to read, it changes everything. And they can make like amazing progress in the shortest amount of time.
Oh yeah. When he's
Yeah.
ready, like for something, like,
Hmm.
well, and then like the sight words with 6 kids homeschooling, I'll take his sight word bundles and I sort them between all the kids, and then
Hmm.
he runs around the room to each kid to get his sight word.
I love it.
And
I
then
love it.
they can just be sitting there reading their book and then just, like the teenagers, like
Right.
just pop
Right.
one up for him,
Right.
and it
So
totally
great.
works. Whereas
It does.
his math, he's decided he wants to be 2 years ahead. That's his goal.
See, I'm telling you.
So he'll
Isn't
sit
that
down.
nice?
He makes his siblings do like 2 or 3 math lessons each with him a day.
What's great because it's cementing it for them too, so they don't forget, right?
Right.
All the
Well,
basics.
he's 6 and they're in algebra. So, but
Right. But it's there's something about teaching someone something, even if
yeah.
it's super basic, that still like gets those juices flowing,
Uh-huh.
So and I love it when the older kids help the younger kids. It's such a
Yeah.
great exercise for them as well.
It
I
really
mean, it
is.
prepares them for parenthood, it prepares them for so many things in life. And I've seen it happen with my own kids,
Mhm.
and now that they're all adults. And so that's what I love about homeschooling, that whole one room house,
Mhm.
schooling, with like a one room schoolhouse type of thing. It really does work.
Well,
And
and I see it at our co-op too. Like
mhm,
a class will get canceled for like the high schoolers, and they
mhm.
don't go outside and play or hang out and be high schoolers.
Right,
They
right.
come like divvy up and help the younger kids.
I love that.
And
That's
nobody
so
tells them to
cool.
do it. They
Right,
just come and do it.
right. I love that. That
Yeah.
is so great. Wow.
It's a great group of kids, but like
Mm,
60% of our county homeschools.
that's amazing.
Yeah. And that doesn't include the Mennonite families.
Wow. There's probably people out there going, "Hey, where do you live? We'd like to move there."
It's a secret. Shh. No, people know where I'm at, but
Yeah.
we are very rural. So, I mean, you were
Yes.
just up
Yeah.
here visiting last
I
summer?
was. Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and even the places that where kids do go to school are like your friend's school, that's very a different type of program.
Right.
So,
Right. Right.
yeah, it's a very interesting group up here. So, but yeah, another one I had to laugh at with your book, you posted a quote from your book on, I think it was your Instagram.
Hmm.
And it was about how you and your husband had gone out to dinner and you were frustrated with your boys.
Right.
And I have had those moments with my boys where I mean, my husband and I would go for a drive sometime in the evenings.
Right.
And I just complain and complain and complain because we have
Right.
5 boys as well out of 6
Right.
kids.
Right.
And
So you have to unload.
yeah, like I just need a place to unload that.
Right.
And and then I realized that all my alone time with my husband is spent complaining.
Venting.
Yeah, I know. It is, and I have to say, like, this is my vent. This is my place to let it all out. But then this is
Right.
also my only alone time with my husband,
Right.
you
So
know.
you need to set a timer.
Hmm.
I have 15 minutes to vent, so I'll just stick to the
Mm,
most important things,
it's a really good idea.
my biggest issues, and then we can talk about fun things.
Right? That's a good one. I'll have to stick with that one. Although it's
Mm.
getting better.
Yeah.
Um, but then your husband had said to you when you got back in the car, well, honey, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but you use too many words.
Hmm. Yep.
And it reminded me of a conversation I had with my husband one time where my husband's a disgruntled vet or disabled vet. Which word do I want to use?
Was that a Freudian slip?
No, no.
No, that was intentional.
Um, but sometimes he parents very gruffly, and some people
Right.
don't get
Right.
that, some people do get
Yep. I
that.
get that.
Um, and I'm a little bit more, I'm gonna explain and stuff. And we were kind of having a disagreement on how we wanted to parent our teenage boys at one point. And I said, it doesn't work to just tell them they're an idiot. And he
Right.
goes, well, all you do is explain to them why they're an idiot.
Well, he might have a point there.
Just
So
maybe.
just like, he's saying it in a lot fewer words than you probably are.
Mhm.
Right? Yes, that's
Exactly.
hilarious. That's hilarious. That's actually very insightful. It's true.
It is.
I'm
And
guilty.
teenage boys, they're missing that piece of their brain for a minute. And
Yeah, they really are.
unfortunately, even though we probably neither of us should be calling them an idiot, sometimes
Yeah, I agree. It
when they're
happens.
when they're missing that chunk of their brain and they do very idiotic things, sometimes it just comes out.
Yes, and I will say my boys handle that so much better than the girls would have.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like they're kind of built, not that it's okay, but
Sometimes,
I
though, I
didn't
have found
worry.
in a very intense moment,
Yeah.
um, I think one of their favorites is, well, like a dumb butt,
Right.
it
Right.
just stops them right in their tracks, and they're like,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. Half the time they do, they start laughing. They're like,
right.
oh my goodness. Wow.
And, but yeah, that was, your point that men just need less words.
Right. Right. That is very common. It's not always the case, but I would say more often than not, and especially in those teen years because
Hmm.
of the hormone. I mean, you guys, we know as moms, like we're familiar with PMS,
Oh yeah.
brain fog, perimenopause, menopause. Okay. They feel some of those things in terms of brain fog, not being able to think straight,
Mm.
not sure what their emotions are doing. And so, if anyone could relate to that, we should be able to relate to it.
Yeah.
And so, being able to walk through that season with them, with their dignity intact as much as possible, I think is really key to keeping a good relationship with them into adulthood so that when they're adults, they still want to hang out with us.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to compromise my authority as a parent and all of that to try to gain that type of friendship with my son because I'm honestly not respecting him when I do that. But
Hmm.
at the same time, there does need to be a measure of grace given for the season that they're in. And that's what I did while those, because they were all four teenagers at that point.
Yeah.
Our youngest was younger than it, but they were all four. The four of the boys are all in
We've
a row.
we have
So
we've had 14, well, we've had four teenage boys at home at the same time. And then like with one is a teenage girl because we have twins that are teenagers right
right.
now.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a lot of teenagers in the house. And then when
Yeah.
they're all boys and they all sort of feed off of each other sometimes. There's there you got to navigate that. But do it but back to the brain fog thing,
Yeah.
doing it in a way that still holds their feet to the fire. So they still
Mhm.
have to, keep the responsibilities that they have, but understanding that they might actually forget to do something that is normal for them to remember.
Yeah.
And as frustrating as it can be, and it's okay to be frustrated, it's also important to say, I get it. I get where you are. And so I'm going to give you some wiggle room, some margin, some grace, whatever you want to call it. But I do expect you to follow through when I do remind you or to be respectful when I do remind you. So I've got a 19-year-old right now that when I remind him recently, he's just been like a poop about it. And so finally, like yesterday, I was like, I'm done. I am simply reminding you to do, and he tells me like, I'm frustrated with myself. Like
Mhm.
this isn't directed towards you. And I said, I'm sorry, but that is not how it comes across. So
Mhm.
whether or not you mean for it to be that, that's what's happening. And so it's important for them to know that also, like, what is your body language saying? Your
Mhm.
body language is saying this, right? And if it's
Well,
if
and
it's not that, you need to explain it to me. Because that's what you have to do in relationships as you get into adulthood too. You can't just assume everybody understands your motives.
well, I
So,
was even going to say my husband at 43, even just a couple of days ago, he worked 2 night shifts in a row.
uh-huh.
And then we had to do some shopping for Easter and stuff, and he was just being a jerk, like while we were
Right.
shopping.
Right. He's tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I mean, it was like everything out of his mouth was
Mm-hmm.
just negative and
Mm-hmm.
short. And we finally,
I always have a line I like to use. It's from Father of the Bride.
uh-huh.
Uh, Bummer man, he delivers. That's always kind of our cue to lighten up a little bit. But yeah, so what happened?
Well, we got home, and it was actually as we were going to bed, and he was just like, he was done. He was ready for bed. But I said, I cannot go to
Mm-hmm.
bed like this.
Mm,
And I let him know that
mm-hmm.
you were a jerk all day. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
when was I a jerk? What point? And I'm like, really? Like, we're gonna like break it down, And it's like I pointed out one time, and he's like, well, I wasn't a jerk then. I wasn't a jerk, And I'm like, I'm not going to break it all down.
Right.
Overall, you were a jerk.
Right.
And he kind of took a minute, and I said, the point is, I get that you were tired today.
Mm-hmm.
I was, you know, what's the word for it? I was giving you grace for the fact that you were tired.
Right. Right.
But
Right.
that does not give you an excuse to just be mean to me.
Mm-hmm.
And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, I can't like pinpoint any moment that I was being a jerk, but when I'm tired, I'm a jerk, and I know that. So,
See, and that's something that our boys need to know, like, when
Mhm.
they're tired, when they're pushed past their limits, what is their visceral response? So
Mhm.
we can help, because I don't think that they do that naturally most of the time. And
Yeah.
as relational creatures that we are, as moms and
Mhm.
nurturers, that's our duty and our job as their moms to teach them that. It's not that we're just being
Well, it's taken
negative
me
and
a
then,
decade to get my husband to admit that.
right,
I
exactly.
mean,
And
and I'm
so
not
if we
saying that
can,
even to be like negative towards
well,
my husband. It's hard for men to even get to a
mhm,
place where they can say that,
exactly. They have
you
a harder
know.
time expressing how they're feeling or recognizing that their attitudes, behaviors, reactions actually affect the people around them.
Hmm.
And so that is a huge thing. We're like, I don't know about you, but I'm like incredibly sensitive to the people around me. Like,
Hmm.
how's what I'm saying or what's happening right now affecting each and every person in the room, which
Yeah.
is absolutely exhausting. Can I just say that?
I've actually asked my husband, how are other women that I know
Right.
so mean? Because if I treated someone that way, I would just be an emotional wreck all the time.
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And so I think that we bring something super valuable to the table when it comes
Mhm.
to helping our boys have healthy communication, a healthy self-awareness, not a self-focus, but a self-awareness of, oh, yeah, this is what I do when I'm overtired, or this is what I do
Mhm.
when I'm pushed to the limit, when I'm under stress, this is what comes out. I need to be aware of that. And I need to have the tools to know how to dial that back. Whether that's I'm going to take a 10-minute break and think all of this through. The pause button is one of my favorite tools. And it took me a long time to learn it because I tend to just want to keep plowing forward and let's just get this done so we can get on to the next thing. And I learned that if you plow too much past that thing, everything just goes to pieces. And so if you stop and you say, okay, we're going to hit the pause button, it's not going to hurt anything to take 10 minutes for us to all stop and take a moment alone and think about what just happened here and
Mhm.
how we can address anything that needs to be addressed, because we don't want to let things fester in relationships and things like that. That's a whole other topic of, I love to talk about nurturing sibling relationships and all that, because that's one of the most powerful ways we teach our kids how to have healthy relationships.
Yeah.
But as a mom, that's what we bring to the table. And so we hopefully are engaged in that role and not so busy that we can't engage in it, or just unaware. And that's what I'm hoping for, like through the book, to be able to increase um, mom's awareness of their very important role in their son's life, but then also recognizing the very important role that male mentors, role models, or dads have
Mhm.
in their son's life. And I talk about that throughout the book because there's a point at which I can't teach them anymore. And
Mhm.
so much of it happens as they get into the teen years and they make that journey from boyhood to manhood during those teen years. It's a very important journey. It's a very foundational journey that will really determine the course of their lives, um, barring any major, like something happening that turns them a different direction. But typically that's where the foundation is laid. And so
Mhm.
my husband knew better than I did what it looked like for them to make that journey, how they
Mhm.
needed to make that journey, the experiences they needed to have, the responses they needed in certain situations. And so he was a
Yeah.
huge resource for me, especially in those teen years.
And I really love how in your book you talk about bringing your husband into it and parenting as a team.
Yes.
My husband and I have found, when we first started, we were a blended family.
Hmm.
And when we first started parenting together, I'd be like, you need to do that. Well, what do you want me to do about it?
Right.
And it took a lot of, even sometimes even if I had the better idea, it
Hmm.
came better from him.
Hmm.
Whether it was my biological child or his,
Right.
or
Right.
our shared biological children,
Right.
boy or
Right.
girl.
Right. Because
Sometimes,
that's really the order of things. Like, if
mhm,
we can what you did was you encouraged leadership in your husband, and you basically told your kids that this is the way we roll.
mhm,
And when they see that consistently, it actually makes them feel safe and
mhm,
secure. And we really do them a huge service in
yeah.
doing that. That's really good. And especially with a blended family, that comes with its own set of complications. And so what a
Well,
wonderful thing for you to have done
yeah.
that.
Thank you. And there was even seasons of life where I didn't agree, as we were learning how to parent together,
Right, right.
there was times that I didn't agree with how he was handling situations and he didn't agree with how I did it, but we always backed each other in the moment and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
readjusted it behind closed doors.
I love that. That is so incredibly key in showing our kids that we're on the same page. Like I
Mhm.
shared in in the book that, my friend, my best friend, we've been friends since we were 12. She's so different than me, but she's actually just like my husband in the female form, and that's why we get along so well. But she told her husband when they were raising teenagers and they weren't on the same page about something, it's just basically like, we have to be on the same page or they will eat us alive.
Oh, they
And
absolutely will.
it's not even conscious. I don't feel
Mhm.
like they even know they're doing it, but if they sense there's like dissension in the ranks between dad and
Yes.
mom, they will be opportunistic and they will go for the one that's most likely to give them their way and not
Yes.
even be fully conscious that they're doing it. So, yeah.
I'm going to say that depends on the child because we
I,
do have one that
and
absolutely
there
has
are
oppositional
those.
defiance disorder and
Mm,
and I used to think some of those diagnoses were a little until I had one that is full
right.
blown,
Mm.
like probably who the book was written about.
Right back.
And I was like, oh my, like
Oh.
you have to watch every step you make because if they
Mm,
see a gap anywhere, they
right.
like predator fish. They like
Right.
go for it.
Yeah. It's like a piranha.
Yeah. It's no joke. I mean, he'll be 19 this week. Like
Oh
we
my.
still have our
Right. Well, and now understand that the is it the frontal
yeah, he's still not
cortex
totally,
that
yeah.
is not fully developed until they're what, like 24,
Yeah.
25, somewhere in there, which is I find this really ironic and frightening because you think about all the life decisions that they're making
Oh my gosh,
up to the
yes.
time they're 25 and you're like, "Really? Okay. We need to actually be on our game as parents, right?"
Yeah, so like his mom passed away when he was 8 and I've been raising him ever since.
Mhm.
We've had challenging relationships, we've had a wonderful relationship, but like
Right.
he called me the other day. He's like, "Hey, stepmommy," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, who did you kill?" Because I knew immediately that when he was sweet,
Right? Something was up.
what did you do?
Oh, I love it.
But he is one of those kids.
Yeah.
So, and he even, at this age, he goes, we had a moment about a year ago where he was like, I'm moving out. I'm going to do this all on my own. I don't need
Right.
anything from you guys. And we were like,
Okay.
okay, bye. And then I mean, he blew his truck up like a month later and he's like, so you're going to help me get a new truck? No.
No. I seem to recall you said you wanted to do this on your own. We wouldn't want to take that away from you.
Right. Exactly. And he's had a rough year and now
Mhm.
he's back. He has his own, we would never let him totally fall, but
Sure.
we weren't there. He called and he's like, "Hey, we're kind of short on groceries, me and my friends." And we're like, "Okay, if you guys want to come up and help us butcher some chickens, you can take some home
Right?
with you."
There you go.
And so they came up and they were here all day. They butchered 100 chickens and I think they took 5 home with them.
That's great. That is the way it should be. I
Hmm.
love that. That's just that verse in Proverbs, if you don't work, you don't eat.
Exactly.
So,
And
yeah.
he's back in his own place. He's working for a guy. He's always wanted to start his own pressure washing business. The guy
Mhm.
owns a painting company. He absolutely loves our son, is helping him get on his feet,
So great.
and told him like I support you starting a pressure washing business because then we can still work hand in hand and you
I
could still
love
work
that.
for me while you're
Mhm.
getting going. So we told him if you get a place and you get a work truck, we'll buy you the pressure washer.
I love that. See, that's the kind of support a parent should give a
Mhm.
child who is still technically launching. Like he may
Yeah.
be out on his own, but that's the thing. We can offer that blessing to them. See, here's the thing that is really interesting. I was listening to somebody talking about the current economic scenario that we're living in. So when you and I were young, we had the hope and the possibility of being able to move up, to better ourselves.
Mhm.
It is getting harder and harder and harder for young people to be able to do that.
Yeah.
They're struggling big time. So if we can come alongside of them and help them, at the right moments, like that is a
Mhm.
perfect moment because he's done the other things. He's done the things to
He'll
learn
have that
that.
pride, and that'll give him that
Yes.
extra
Yep.
motivation.
Exactly. And that'll help him own what he's doing that much more
Mhm.
and appreciate his business and the success that he has with it. He will feel like he earned it. It wasn't given to him.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And he's
Hmm.
definitely one of those kids that skates by on his good luck, so we're not letting
Right.
that one happen. So
Yeah, good for you. Good for you.
but yeah, I think that economic conversation could be a whole nother one. I
It
preach
could
to
be.
kids all the
Yep.
time, like you have to have 6 sources of income and you need to be making up what your new career is because you're
Right.
not going to make it on the careers that they have on the list at the
Nope.
school anymore. So
No, and the thing is, the jobs that they have don't even exist yet.
no.
And the only way that they're going to be able to work into those jobs is to have a certain amount of character, which
Mhm.
is, integrity, honesty, a good hard work ethic,
Yep.
resilience, just all the things that, well, quite frankly, you can offer on a homestead.
Exactly. And I teach those in my homestead science book. So,
I love that. Love that. So
So
important.
we are getting to the end of our time. So my favorite question for all my guests is what does keep growing mean to you?
What does keep growing mean? Well, I'm 56 years old and I am to the point in life where I look at the average peer, that's my age, and they're kind of wrapping things up and going and, doing all the fun things that they want to do, which I don't have a problem with doing fun things. But quite frankly, that is not what I'm ending up being called to. And so I'm being forced to continue to grow because we're going back into homesteading again. And we live on the same property with several of our kids, a bunch of our grandkids. So this whole peaceful, retired grandparenting life is not what that looks like for us. It's very, very much continuing to grow. And I wouldn't have it any other way because I think that's when we make it to really old age, still moving and working and being involved and not becoming stagnant.
I agree. That's absolutely true. My dad worked every single day till the end,
Yeah, yeah,
and he
that's
was
my
as
plan.
very happy for it. So,
Yes.
well, I appreciate you coming on so much today. Anybody who has the opportunity to read Drenda's new book, Raising Boys to Men, it is an absolutely wonderful book, whether you're raising sons or grandsons or daughters that you hope to have godly husbands for one day,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
you have a friend, or I mean, it's an amazing, amazing
You
book.
can
So
learn more about your husband too.
oh yeah, absolutely. I really loved the advice in there on how to talk to your husband about
Hmm.
parenting together. So,
Hmm. Thank you.
do you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Sure. You can find the book Raising Boys to Men on Amazon. The audiobook is coming out April 15th, and that will be available exclusively at my website, durendawilson.com. So it's durendawilson.com/audiobooks, and that'll take you right there. So yeah, that's where you can find it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I will link everything in the show notes.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!